Hello, everybody. Also, welcome from my side. I'm Fabian Klebert, the technical lead of NDS. And it is my pleasure to present the technical achievements since the last year. It is, as usual, a very quick and rough overview only, as I think the more fancy and nicer presentations are done by the members. Let's start. The access to NDS Live is usually one of the first. So if you have followed these kind of presentations over the years, you will find, he's reusing the slides and only updating the numbers. So yes, that's right. So what you see here is the access to NDS Live. Everyone knows that by now, I think, is openly accessible via the developer portal that we have. And we make this available also to non-NDS members. And we can see here the number of registrants, which is always a measure of at least of interest, maybe not success, but the success stories we hear today. And so when we take a look at the total number of registrants, we're now at, excluding NDS members, so there are even more, but we did not count the NDS member accounts. So we have now 2,100 roughly users registered since last year. So that's an increase of roughly 100%. And that means, of course, that these numbers, to be honest, they don't tell much. They say how many people are registered. We don't know if these are power users or if they just taken one look once, but at least it gives a kind of a measure of the interest in NDS Live, which is still high. And we can also see from the support Slack channel that we have the usage. I didn't put numbers there what we had last year. So last year we had also roughly about 300 to 400. So there's also an increase of about the same size. And so in these support Slack channels, people can ask questions when they have trouble using any of the tools, or if they have trouble understanding the specification, and so on and so forth. Good. Let's take a quick look on what we have released in the specification being our product, the product of NDS Association, of course. And if you followed over the last years, you will see that the number of releases has dropped in terms of the amount. So we're not releasing, so it is an agile release cycle. This is why you see the cycle here. So this is driven by demand of the NDS members that are driving the standard. And we went from, let's say, monthly releases to 2 monthly releases. And now over the last year, you will see less. But they're sometimes then bigger ones, but have a lot of more documentation improvements, maybe not as much of new features or missing features. So in July, so it starts basically since after the last General Assembly, NDS conference, which was also in June last year. So the next was then in July. We had their improved signposts, extended EV charging model, and cellular network coverage as a new feature. Then in September, we added a point cloud localization layer. So this is basically not complete point cloud for a tile or so. You have to think about point cloud objects where you say, okay, out of certain sensor readings, you can now generate point cloud objects with certain variances and so on and so forth. So that was requested actually by the car makers, more or less, to say, yeah, we want to process our fleet data, which we heard earlier in the BMW talk, directly also into NDS again, without having to process it, without finding out, okay, this is maybe a sign or a tree or something, but it is kind of an important, so our algorithm found out it is an important point cloud that we need. So it has relations to the lanes and roads, so you can subsequently load them So you don't have to load it for one complete area of 1 square kilometer or so, which is then would be too big in memory. So these kind of point cloud objects are now introduced in a new localization layer. We have also improved service compatibility management. You heard that in the TomTom presentation earlier, multiple versions, and how can an application figure out for the future which ones it can still compatibly load, which ones it probably has to use different reader configuration, and so on and so forth. In November, which was the last really big release there, we have extended the admin hierarchy model. We're now allowing the NDS SQLite dev kit for more compact file stores. The NDS SQLite dev kit was actually the foundation that we had in NDS Classic, where we had compression built in, we have encryption built in, and all of that. We did from the very beginning, not really because of the open availability of NDS Live, we did not make that available because it is actually only licensed to NDS members. So there we have a cut now. This NDS Live, the dev kit or NDS SQLite dev kit is only available for members. The non-NDS members simply use the standard SQLite, which is publicly available, which does not come with built-in compression. So it's simply bigger databases for the non-NDS members. NDS members get the small databases. And then across all of the modules, we had major documentation improvements. This is now, I think that this is kind of the phase we're entering now more and more, that we say, okay, the documentation, the overall accessibility of the specification is now more in focus, where in the last 1 or 2 years, it was more like, okay, we really need to get it feature richer, we need to get it on par with NDS Classic, and so on and so forth. So, and last but not least, recently we added some fixes and documentation improvements for the point cloud layer. That was because it was then first kind of like first POC or internal use by some of the members, and they figured out, yeah, there was something smaller mistakes we had made in the specification and documentation, and we fixed that now recently. So in the next 1 or 2 months, we plan also yet another bigger release, with much more documentation increase, less of a feature increase, but it's now all about documentation to have to simplify the ramp up and the adoption. We also have this new NDS Live map viewer that we have established over the last year. So the features are, of course, very powerful feature search and filtering. So you can simply search for what features, what roads do have a certain speed limit or whatever. It would highlight that then, so you can zoom to a certain area. You don't have to search like by clicking on links and inspecting them, but you can search over the whole viewport very easily and highlight them. We have added, now it supports currently the visualization of roads, lanes, localization, landmarks, POI, and 2D display. And one of the highlights especially for debugging, is also this customizable highlighting and styling system. So you see the standard style here on the right, but you already can see 2 kind of styles there that everyone is actually is able to style their map to their needs. So you can say, for instance, a certain attributes get a certain color, and you can very easily then see whatever, when the speed limit below 30 or something like that, or above 100, or I don't know what kind of, or special outliers that you're looking for. Like if you say the curvature is super sharp, then you can simply scroll around and it will automatically highlight these positions. You don't even have to search for them. And so this is especially useful for inspection. So the map viewer is not only like a fancy map viewer that you can show off, but it is meant to be a tool for also developers to work with and inspect the data once you build it, to maybe help in debugging the data and so on. So this is also one of the next things They have the source data inspection. So if you know the database inspector from NDS Classic, it also has now the source view where you can exactly see this is the bit position, how it is stored in the byte stream, and so on and so forth. And this, so it relates this to the visual representation. So once you click on one road or so, you can easily jump to the place in the blob where it actually is stored. In case you want to pinpoint any errors or so. And it's also easy to deploy as a software as a service. So we've also heard from the members that they more and more want to deploy that in their CI/CD processes, where they would simply shoot up a server with a new map, and then everyone simply can connect them. All of the testers and the developers, they don't need to have their local installed map viewer, where they then have to always change the URL or any kind of connection information. So you can do that centrally and just give it access, because it is a native web application, more or less, right? It's not an app that you can install. So this is one of the things we've been also asked for some other use cases. So we will do that within the next year to make it available as an desktop application. But at the moment, the focus is more on these like company-wide deployments. It also features GeoJSON export in two ways. So you can, for one feature, you can directly export it as GeoJSON, and there's also an API available so that you can export a full tile. So in case you have other tools that need further processing, the map viewer is kind of like also a NDS Live to GeoJSON converter. And it does that via an API that you can trigger, so you can automate this as well. And very recent addition was NDS Classic support. So it was natively built for NDS Live. And then the technical committee decided, okay, what do? We have now two map viewers. We have one for NDS Classic, we have one for NDS Live. The one for NDS Classic was built upon a different tech stack, an older one. And it was, of course, then the question, do we need to maintain both? And why not adding Classic support also to the new one? So, and then eventually the decision was like that, to say, okay, we're going to add Classic support also to the new one. So to streamline the development and to sunset all the developments for Database Inspector and the old map viewer for NDS Classic. So at the moment, the routing and lane building blocks are already implemented from NDS Classic, and there also will follow more on demand. The sample map evaluation services, we have heard of them already, which are currently live. We will hear about, I do kind of spoil the presentation from Zenrin a bit, I'm sorry. But for the sake of completeness, I also put it there. So we already heard, or there already was there for sample map service from here. We heard the ones from NNG in the presentation, and yeah, just a small preview. Well, there's also one from Zenrin. They have different feature sets and different coverages, which you can all see there. They all have a online map viewer that can be accessed on the like the URLs that you can see on the right. You can there pan around, inspect them, and yeah, and I'm happy to. I don't want to spoil the presentation from Zenrin, but we now have one with HD lanes as well, so that's great. And so this is what is deployed right now, and for July. Planned in the next 2 months is also to have sample map evaluation service from TomTom with the following coverages. So then we are really present all around the world with different feature sets. So the feature set was announced to be roads and ADAS, and will also be available under that URL that you see there. It was already mentioned in the introduction slides that we also now have started a new project on an NDS Live Open Drive converter. Since the simulation industry, we also heard or simulation in general for is super important. We heard that in the morning from NVIDIA, and everybody, I can still emphasize this, everybody's doing some sort of simulation anyhow when you develop any kind of ADAS AD feature. And for NDS Live, we did not yet have an open drive converter. The project started last year in November. The first full release is planned for mid of this month, so mid of June. And it features bidirectional conversion, so you can convert from NDS Live to Open Drive and Open Drive to NDS Live. And it is a Python application, will also be delivered as a library later on, so you can even integrate this easier in any kind of CI/CD pipelines or in your own applications. We will probably also integrate it in an upcoming Python SDK that we're building for NDS Live, but this is then for next year to present. And yeah, and the next phase is then also, it was planned that the Open Drive converter is also set up as a software as a service, basically, that you don't have to install everything on your own. So it will run on NDS servers, or it has the possibility. I think it yet has to be decided whether we do it, but I think this will be an easy decision. That once this is there, you can easily just copy paste the URL of your NDS service and then get it converted into Open Drive and back. Yeah. So you see here two nice test screenshots. One is the NDS part, the viewer on the upper one, and the lower one is a Open Drive viewer. It's not exactly the same map, but yeah, you see it's working in both directions already. So there's already a beta phase out. We also have already received feedback from the first users, and the team that implements it is working on improving this as well until the first full release in June. Good. There's also, has been mentioned, Azirio, the underlying library that we develop also for, which is the lowest level serialization library in the car or in the cloud when you serialize NDS Live to binary. We're currently working there on a new C++17 code generator to modernize this. It's going to be kind of feature complete in a month or two. Of course, we have also implemented feedback from projects that using Zero in functional safe environment. You may remember the presentation from BMW from last conference where they actually presented how they are using Zero in the functional safe L2 plus or L3, I'm never sure what it exactly is, system. And we are in the process to hand over to the Eclipse SDV Foundation, where we think the governance and all of that, what is needed also for functional safety to be more like, okay, they have a process, more like we can utilize some of the things. We're still maintaining it, so NDS will still, the NDS Association will still pay for the development. It will still do hot fixes for all the members whenever they are needed, so no fear that this goes out of control. We still control it, but it will be handed over to Eclipse SDV to also contribute to the whole SDV and open source process. Okay, last but not least, NDS Classic is not dead, still there, still the cash cow for most of the member companies. Yet on the NDS specification side, we have not so much work there any longer. We have now a NDS Classic documentation portal, which now uses actually the same software as the NDS Live developer portal that was done to reduce costs, as the license costs and maintenance costs for the old documentation portal were just not reasonable any longer for the reason that we do not make any updates any longer. It's simply static data that is there. People want to access it. But yeah, we could also reuse the own development that we do with the NDS Live developer portal. So we also did that in the first half of this year. The tool support and enhancements, the database inspector, which was a long tool mate of anyone using NDS Classic and working with it, is now in LTS mode. So it rode into the sunset and can be only reactivated if a majority of members in the technical committee would say so and say, yeah, we need maybe to bring it to another, I don't know, whatever, Windows version or another Linux version, and it doesn't work there any longer, and we need some changes and things like that. For SQLite engine and RDS, so the data script, relational data script tool, we're still doing maintenance and upgrades. RDS is for a long time already in LTS mode. So mainly the SQLite engine is getting all the security updates and so on that are happening in the open source upstream. So we're all taking that and providing them also always with the latest compression algorithms and so forth. The Open Drive converter for Classic, currently the support is discontinued. So the only project that we're having actively maintained is the NDS Live to Open Drive converter. And yeah, that actually is the first part of the presentation. If you have any questions, then now would be a good time while I am switching to the next presentation. So in case there are any questions? No. Okay.